This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Warrenville Public Works and Infrastructure Committee of the Whole regular meeting. It is Monday, September 26th. Clerk, can we please have a roll call?
Mayor Brummel?
Here.
Alderman Ashour?
Here.
Alderman Berry?
Here.
Alderman Davalos?
Here.
Alderman Goodman?
Here.
Alderman Krischel?
Here.
Alderman Kruckenberg?
Here.
Alderman Lockett?
Here.
Alderman Widener?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. And if you will all please stand, if you are able, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Citizens' comments. If we have anyone that wishes to get up and do a citizen's comment, please do so at this time. If not, if you have a comment on one of the items on during the business of the meeting, we will accept comments at that time for that item. Officials and staff comments. Mayor Brummel?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This just off the presses. We have exciting news. Alma Morgan has been promoted to the Assistant City Administrator position. Alma has served the city in a variety of positions since she started in 2013, each with increasing responsibility, and she's still smiling. We are excited to see her grow into this new role, so congratulations, Alma. We're really excited for the prospects in the next coming years.
Good.
And that's all I have, and I think that's enough.
Okay, Alderman? No comments? Okay. Clerk? No comments? Okay, and anyone on the staff have any comments? All right, this is easy. I shouldn't have said that too soon. City Administrator? No comments. Okay. Now on to the business of the meeting. The first item is the consideration of Source Water Protection Plan contract. That will be presented by Phil Kukler, our Director of Public Works.
Thank you and good evening. The Illinois Environmental Protection Agency regulations require the city to create and submit a source water protection plan before July 26th of 2023. There's another set of IEPA regulations that are causing the city to assess possible contaminants to its groundwater. The city previously developed a risk and resilience assessment and updated its emergency response plan for the water system with the assistance of engineering enterprises. Money was included in the current budget to develop this plan, and staff is recommending a contract with EEI to meet this important IEPA requirement. John Satter and I are both here to answer any questions you might have on the subject.
Thank you. Alderman, questions, comments? Alderman Goodman?
Yes, I noticed that their timeline for completion was the end of July, but July 26th next year is our deadline. Is there any reason we're cutting this so close and we didn't make some sort of sooner deadline?
No, I mean, with the previous two items they assisted us with, I don't know if in this case if it's the same, but I know with the risk and resilience assessment, if you submitted it too early, the clock started ticking on completing the next item. I don't know that there is necessarily a next item for this requirement, so I don't anticipate pushing it that close to the deadline unless there's a reason to delay it that long.
Okay. We'd like to follow the law. I think it does say in the contract that they're supposed to submit it in accordance with the law. So hopefully that means we'll get it done in time. But these things do often get pushed back or delayed, and when there's a legal deadline, you don't want to do that. There's a map here, which I guess, I don't know if you can help me read it, but it shows the hydrological cross-section of our 4 operating wells. There aren't any units, so that was confusing right off the bat. And I couldn't quite tell what the difference was between the dark lines in each well and the white lines, if there's, the height of the water within the well or the depth of the well itself, or, I just wondered what some of this meant.
So the units for the numbers that are on the left side would be feet, so that'd be, 300 to 700 feet above sea level. That would be the elevation of either the water or the ground level, depending on where you're at. The kind of upside down triangles with the line underneath them are where the pumped water level is. And then I think the white versus the shaded areas where the shaded areas where the static water level, so before we start pumping, is the line that's drawn across the entire thing. I would assume that the dark line might be where the pump placement is in it. I don't know, I actually don't know if they included this as an exhibit, and I know John doesn't have it back there with him, but,
Okay, because, on 3 of these, it seems to indicate our pumping water level is sort of at or below or I guess at or above the line that's dark, but then on well 12, it's below, and I didn't know what that meant.
I'll talk to EEI about that and either modify this to include more of a key or some indicators as to what those are for the city council meeting.
Okay, I mean, as long as the people putting together the source water protection plan have a better handle on it than I do, I'm sure it will be fine. Thank you.
Yeah, they do.
Alderman Davalos?
Thank you. I just wanted to ask real quickly, have we ever done anything like this before? Or is this our first time to really look at it this way? I was just thinking if we had a comparison, is this our first time doing this?
So back in 1993, we did a groundwater protection program. And during that process, we looked at what our static levels, pumping levels. We do monitor that on a monthly basis, regardless. So it's been a long time, 1993 till now, but yeah, we're due for one.
Great, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no other comments or questions? Can I have a motion, someone? Alderman Goodman?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to recommend the City Council pass a resolution approving a professional services agreement with Engineering Enterprises Incorporated for a source water protection plan.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Goodman and a second by Alderman Lockett. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. On to number 2, a consideration of CDBG funding agreement for Square Courts Road Project. Director Kukler.
Thank you. The city was notified last year that it would receive a community development block grant through DuPage County for resurfacing of some of its streets. The streets are in Summer Lakes, and they're currently commonly referred to as the Square Courts, and they're generally located west of Shaw Drive between Continental Drive and Batavia Road. Resurfacing these roads and the complete replacement of the existing sidewalk and existing curb and gutter will occur in 2023 and included in the fiscal year 24 budget. The county's standard funding agreement for CDBG funds is included with the agenda backup materials, and staff and the city attorney have reviewed the agreement and are recommending approval of it. So with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Oh, Alderman Davalos?
So CMRP, so it looks like, what, 700,000 maybe after we take out the grant will be coming out of the CMRP, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's a chunk of change, obviously. And I suppose that do we have to do anything differently with the CMRP or just keep chugging along with our inputs? And, I mean, that's a lot. It won't come up to be paid all that frequently, well, once, but we have that in there. I suppose you wouldn't put it in there if we didn't, I'm just.
Correct. No, this was anticipated as part of the CMRP, and the $600,000 for grant money will actually help with the CMRP by reducing that cost that we would be paying out of the CMRP.
Okay, so we had actually had thought before about paying the 1,300,000, right?
Correct.
So this is a good deal. Okay.
It is.
Thanks.
Mayor Brummel?
I just want to piggyback on that. This is a perfect example of responsible government. I think it's typical of what our staff does for us, find outside sources of income, and of course, the elected officials created the CMRP so that there's money available for these needed repairs. So this $1.3 million is accounted for without an emergency. It's been planned for, and it should go smoothly, given the quality of the contractors that we hire. But again, this is the way we're supposed to operate. I congratulate the staff and the elected officials for having the foresight to put this money aside and having the ability and the will to find those grants and make them apply to the city of Warrenville. So good job.
Thank you. Alderman Goodman?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to recommend the City Council pass a resolution approving a community development block grant subgrantee agreement with the County of DuPage regarding the Summer Lakes Square Courts resurfacing project.
We have a motion by Alderman Goodman and a second by Alderman Kruckenberg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Number 3, consideration of preliminary engineering contract for the Old Town redevelopment site number 2. This would be Christina Hocking, please, senior engineer. Christine, excuse me.
It's okay.
Christina?
We get that a lot. Christina, Kristen.
Kristen, not Kristen, that's Christine. And Christine.
Thank you very much. As you all know, the City Council endorsed the preferred concept plan for Old Town redevelopment site number 2, other known as OTRS number 2, earlier this year, and also approved to retain the three-way stop condition at Batavia and Warrenville Road. The next step in the redevelopment of this site is to prepare a preliminary engineering plan based upon this concept site. So that would essentially vet the concept plan from the engineering side. The contract includes survey of the OTRS site, which includes obviously the old Citgo gas station and the 2 properties to the north that the city owns. And it will include engineering design for the concept plan, the on-street parking that was part of that 3-way stop condition analysis, as well as looking into the possibility of extending sidewalk all the way to Warrenville Grove. So all of that information is included in the scope that the consultant included in their project approach. Obviously, there's other engineering meetings that will occur, as well as a stormwater management report to analyze the stormwater management requirements. Most importantly, the floodplain. There is floodplain on this property, so with any fill on the property, we would have to compensate it 1.5 times the amount of fill. So the engineering plans, preliminary engineering plans will go into where that will occur, how it will occur, and if this site is feasible, or if the concept plan is feasible from the engineering side of things. We obtained proposals from 2 consultants and staff selected engineering resources associates as the most capable firm for this work. They've done a lot of work for the city in the past. They also were the main engineering consultant for the county when the river remeandering project was done. So they're very familiar with the site. Their proposal and cost estimate is included in the backup agenda materials, and I'd like to take any questions at this time.
Thank you. Alderman Goodman.
Has staff ever done this before, done a preliminary engineering on a preferred concept plan for a site that the city wasn't planning to build out itself?
Has the city ever done something like this?
Paid for an engineering for a site that we are not planning to build ourselves?
I do not recall. Phil's nodding his head. He doesn't remember as well.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No.
Nothing comes to mind. So why are we doing this?
So the reason for doing it in this, there's a lot of other activities and risks, I guess, involved with this in terms of the floodplain management, obviously, side of things, as well as because we hired an environmental consultant to take a look at the environmental remediation portion of it. We want to make sure that the concept site plan works in the areas where we need the remediation to occur. So, for example, if there's an area of the site where on the site plan it's saying, well, this area should be open space, but we need a lot of remediation done, there's gonna have to be a lot more cost to the city to remediate an area that is gonna be grass versus an area that's going to be like a parking lot. Parking lot, you can put the parking lot over it and you don't have to do as much site remediation because the exposure is not as great to the public. So the engineering plan and the engineers, as part of this contract, will work with our environmental consultant, Terracon, to ensure that's the most cost-effective plan that we've put together. So there might be some tweaks to that concept site plan that you guys all have seen, and the engineering is just gonna vet it out to make sure that it's actually makes sense.
So was this a decision package as part of the budget?
It was part of the decision package budget, yep.
Okay, so we aren't building this plan, but you think that this money is worthwhile because it will help us with the environmental remediation, which we are doing and which we have already committed to do.
Correct.
Okay, that, you've convinced me.
Alderman Lockett?
How far, this is gonna get us to 30%, right, as far as the drawings go? How
Correct.
far are we intending on going?
In terms of,
Is it the thought that we're gonna eventually go to 50% drawings or
I think
60 or?
at this point, we've just, in the decision package, just to be at the preliminary engineering or at 30%, and see from that point if we need to move forward, or at that point is when we come back to you all and say, you know, this is the next step in this process.
Yeah, because I was just thinking if there was anticipation that we were gonna have to go further, then obviously it would probably make more sense to have them do that now, considering this isn't gonna be done until next year.
Right.
But if you need more information on that, then that makes sense.
Yeah, it's working hand in hand with our environmental consultant, Terracon, and trying to make sure that they're putting forth the best site remediation plan that they possibly can based upon the engineering side of things.
Got it. Thank you.
Alderman Davalos?
Thank you. Yeah, this isn't really a question, but just a thought. I would think that from a community development perspective, that it would be much more attractive for a developer to come in and contemplate a development on this land with this study done. Because otherwise, they'd have to do it probably, or at least some semblance of it. This is such a challenging site and has such a history of different challenges, different things going on, that I think it's really behooves us as a city to have this done. And then when we get to the stage where we are asking developers to come and take a look, it'll be really nice to have all this information done, so.
Right.
Thank you, yeah.
Alderman Widener?
Thank you. You mentioned a sidewalk going down into Warrenville Grove. Would that be along the roadway, or how is that envisioned?
Right now, we're gonna get topographic survey from the center line of the road all the way to the fronts of the buildings along Batavia Road. Where exactly the sidewalk will line up is undetermined at this point, but it'll be based upon, obviously, where the parking, on-street parking goes to where it ends. Obviously, the sidewalk will be behind that, you know, closer to the intersection. As it goes down and goes past Warrenville Grove, like Animal Hospital, et cetera, not exactly sure at this time, but the idea is, obviously, would be to try to stay within the right-of-way, but if we need additional area outside the roadway, it would be an easement, obviously.
And they will evaluate this from a pedestrian access?
Correct.
And cyclists too, because there's a bicycle lane along there too?
Right.
To be able to maintain that?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Brumlow?
I just wanted to add that this process is consistent with what we've done in the past. If we look at, for instance, the Earhart development, We had a highly contaminated site with lots of issues, and we made sure that we resolved all of those important issues before we went out for development. That allowed us to get a much higher quality development and a developer that was more interested in the site. So this is essentially what we're trying to do with this site, is to take away all the negatives so that when we get an offer for development, it's all ready to go, and that'll give us a much better chance of getting a quality developer, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Lockett.
I'd like to make a motion, City Council pass a resolution approving a professional service agreement with Engineering Resource Associates, Inc. for preliminary engineering services related to the Old Town redevelopment site number 2.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Lockett and a second by Alderman Goodman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Number 4, a consideration of design visualizations contract for the Old Town redevelopment site number 2. Christine Hocking.
Thank you. So this contract with this consultant is to work hand in hand with the engineer for the previous contract to develop, we call them design visualizations or 3D renderings, flyover views, 360 views. What does that exactly mean? We included in the decision package for this item these 3D renderings. There was a link to examples of it, but if you imagine yourself as a person flying over the site and seeing the buildings, seeing kind of people walking, kind of more artistic views of what the site could be, this is essentially what that is. There's also in the proposal to have a 360 view, so that it essentially means you're being dropped in the middle of this site, and on your computer you can look in a 360 view and see, you know, exactly what it kind of looks like, because it's hard for the public to see a site on paper and understand really what that means. So I think this contract will help twofold. It'll help obviously the public to see what the project will be, and 2, it'll help developers come in and see what our vision is from the city's perspective. So we, for this proposal, we looked at 2 different consultants, and we selected Kimley Horn and Associates. They were the ones who did the original concept site development work. They came and presented that to you. They have great services for the 3D visualizations. So we decided to recommend them for this contract. And in the back of material, there is their proposal as well as all their scope of services. It includes the various meetings and these 3D visualizations that can be put up on a screen, or the idea is to perhaps host them on the city's website so that people can go to and kind of look at everything themselves. So with that, I'd like to take any questions.
Alderman Goodman.
In my opinion, this is one of those expensive would-be-nice kind of projects that is not a need, it's a want, and maybe at best it's a nice-to-have that doesn't significantly increase the chances of a developer building this project as the staff envisions it. One of the parts of this proposal that struck me as even the most expensive was that there's even a cost of $2,500 separately for a city council presentation of this 3D graphic illustration. I thought we were told that this would be a tool to convince the public or the development community to try and buy into this vision. So I assume that staff will need to be able to present it themselves, or it should be easy enough that we should be able to do it, to be presented at some sort of publicly advertised meeting, not at a city council meeting where we have an audience of 1. And I suppose if we were going to do it at all, I would want that $2,500 cost removed from this plan. But certainly for $20,000, I'm not in favor of spending money on something that I don't feel we need.
Alderman Davalos, you had your hand up?
Yes. Yeah, I had a question about what Alderman Goodman said, but let me go with what was I going to say was, I really, from experiencing the interactions of community development with the city in some of the meetings that occurred last year and the first of this year, people, I think, got very enthusiastic with the visuals. This is such a controversial site, again. It's just had a history of so many different plans and things, and I think people are excited about it, but I think they're excited when they know what's going on, and they can see it. And so I really am in favor of this. I was thinking, I was really glad about the city council presentation. I thought the whole plan was $18,000 that we were voting on tonight, right? So did you say something about 20,000? Or what did you mean? Your objection?
The decision package was for 20,000. The piece of the 18,000 that is for the city council presentation was 2,500.
Oh, okay. I don't know. It seems like we might have questions of the people that did it, but again, never mind. I don't have anything to say about that, I guess, at this point.
Mayor Brummel?
Well, as Alderman Davalos alluded to, this is a pretty important site that has a lot of interest in the community, and visuals are very important to people. Anything that we can do to raise awareness of what we're trying to do. I get frequent questions of what are we doing there? I can direct them to something at some point. And of course, any presentation made, professional presentation made to the council would be on our website and available to people for them to watch at their leisure. So it seems to me there's a modest expense that will help us to redevelop a really important site, one of our last sites that's critical in terms of what our community looks like when people enter it. So I'm in favor of this.
Alderman Widener.
This will give a perspective of the height of the building when we see this, and our idea is to have a 3-story tall structure there. Is that what our staff recommendation has been so far?
Can't recall right now.
And I'm just thinking if a developer comes in and wants to go higher,
Right.
these kinds of perspectives will aid anyone looking at it to see what the impact of the height of the building would be. Is that true?
Correct, yes. I mean, the renderings would be based upon the concept site development and those visual renderings, whether they were we believe that they were 2-story, but so you would get that perspective from, the 3D view, and you could see how high essentially they would be based
So
upon.
when we're trying to
compared to
protect
other
a view
things.
shed or something like that.
Right.
Now, okay, so we will probably be given a perspective from staff's recommendation of 2 or 3 stories, whatever it is. If a developer comes in and wants to go 4, and, we need to consider that because the developer is going to say they can't make any money because they have to go higher. Who will be responsible for giving us that perspective of the 4-story or 5-story or whatever it is they deem is the necessary height in order to make money?
It seems at that point, since that's the developer's proposal coming in, that they would provide that type of view.
So they would add on to this contract, so to speak, and.
Or they would provide probably their own,
probably their
I would
own.
imagine at that point. If they're drastically changing what the city had envisioned for that area, that they would provide their own concepts.
Okay. Thank you, appreciate it.
I do have a comment. I sat here in 2005 or 6 when we had a developer come in, and this is how long this property's been up for grabs this whole time. I think if we would have had something like this at that time, this property would have been developed a long time ago, because we would have been able to show the people that had so many negative comments about the developer that was trying to get into that location. It would have answered a lot of their questions, and we would have been able to have this piece of property all settled and developed and making money for us and having businesses in there that would make money and places for people to live. So I'm all in favor of this. My only question is the $18,000 expense, is it 18 or is it 20,000? What is the amount?
No, it is 18,100.
And does that include the 2,500?
Correct, yes.
Oh, okay. All right. I would, Alderman Goodman?
Yes, if a developer wants 4 or 5 stories, then that's a perfect example of why this 20,000, 18,100 would be wasted, because their rendering would not be the same as ours. It would not modify this. We would then have a 3D plan of something that was not going to be built or proposed, and they would need to come up with their own renderings of some other project, some other version of a similar project. And to respond to a comment that the mayor made, I do not think if we're spending $18,000 on a 3D graphical interface, anyone would be interested in, instead of looking at that 3D graphical interface directly, going on to the city website to watch a city council meeting in which they don't have control over the interface themselves and wouldn't be able to see it. So people later on looking at our video of us watching someone go through the 3D interface would be not a good way to communicate that 3D interface to those people, if you're following what I'm saying. They would want to look at the 3D interface themselves, not at a video of our presentation, which is another reason why, even if we did go forward with this, I think we should reduce the size of this contract by the $2,500 and save that money.
Can I just clarify something about the presentation?
go right
So
ahead.
the presentation is also included in the previous contract with Engineering Resource Associates. It's very typical for us to come back to City Council with a contract and present the findings of it. Just like we did with the concept site plan, we came to City Council and we prepared and asked for an endorsement of that site plan, as well as the 3-way stop. So it's a presentation not just of the visualization, but in conjunction with the engineer's plan and what will be, or what can be done on this site from the floodplain management side of things. And so it's an overall just presentation to City Council based upon what these contracts are about.
Alderman Widener, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you. I guess I'm in favor of this. This is, has been marked as more or less the gateway to our community. And, you know, a lot of community surveys have pointed to the open space and the value of the view of the river and enhancing that viewscape as you come down the hill into Warrenville. And I think it's important that we uphold and use every tool at our means to be able to develop a site that would have an aesthetic impact and not take away from, you know, what our long-range strategic goals are as far as, you know, making developing a community that is not only functioning from an economic standpoint, but is also maintains its, I guess, character. Some people describe it as rural, some people describe it as, you know, a riverine personality. But I think this tool will afford us an opportunity to be able to see the impact of these commercial enterprises that are going to be placed on a very strategic corner of our city. And so far, we've done a really nice job. I think when you look to the east side, you know, with the historical buildings and the open space over there and the trails winding through, it's been well done. And I think this will help us to continue and kind of piece that together. So, you know, I guess I'm in favor of it. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we will need a motion. Alderman Lockett?
I'd like to make a motion that City Council pass a resolution approving a professional services agreement with Kimley Horn and Associates for design, visualization services relating to the Old Town redevelopment site number 2.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Lockett and a second by Alderman Davalos. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. Thank you. Number 5, consideration of city code changes relating to e-bidding of city projects. We have Public Works Director Kukler.
Thank you. Public Works and Community Development staff included an item in our work plans to evaluate the use of Demand Star for e-bidding of city projects. We attended an online demonstration of the product over the summer, and we're impressed with not only the product, but also how many local communities are using the service. The service is free for the city, and then the potential bidders pay a subscription fee to subscribe to the service. The changes are necessary to the city code to allow for the use of e-bidding, so our current code doesn't allow for that. So the city attorney drafted changes to the code and ordinance that's included with the agenda backup materials to allow the city to use e-bidding or in addition to the current method that we use for bidding. So with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you. Comments, questions? See none? Motion? Alderman Lockett?
I'd like to make a motion that the City Council pass an ordinance amending the Warrenville City Code regarding competitive bidding procedures.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Lockett and a second by Alderman Davalos. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, motion passes. Number 6, consideration of IGA with DuPage County for East Side Storm Sewer Funding. Director Kukler.
Thank you. The city was awarded a DuPage County Stormwater Grant earlier this year to pay for 50% of the construction costs to replace a segment of storm sewer on Virginia and Central Avenues. The grant is for a maximum of $343,500. The grant is being funded with a portion of the county's American Rescue Plan Act funds, and the draft intergovernmental agreement is included with the agenda backup materials, and it's in a form that is acceptable to staff, the city attorney, and DuPage County. So with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Alderman Goodman?
I think this is really more a question for Kevin, but because it's American Rescue Plan funds, similar to American Rescue Plan funds that we have already earmarked for other water and sewer projects, are there additional reporting requirements or accounting, or should we account for it in any way publicly, I suppose, just to let people know what our American Rescue Plan funds are? I saw a note in this week's report that we have received our second tranche in the amount of $896,000+, which is wonderful.
I can check with Kevin and see if there are any reporting requirements that he feels we'd need, and also the city attorney, see if she knows. And if I can include that then in the agenda backup materials for the city council meeting next Monday.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, we need a motion, please. Alderman Goodman.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the City Council pass a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Warrenville and the County of DuPage regarding East Side Phase 4 Central and Virginia Avenues.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Goodman, second by Alderman Davalos. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Number 7, consideration of design engineering contract for the East Side Storm Sewer. Director Kukler.
Thank you. This item goes hand in hand with the previous item. Engineering Resource Associates helped us to evaluate the storm sewer capacities on the east side, and they helped with the previous design of the previous segments that were replaced by street division staff over the last couple of years. They also did assist the city with our preparing the application for the county funding that we're receiving. So staff is recommending that the ERA perform the design and preparation of bid documents for the city for this project. There is sufficient funding in the CMRP in this year's budget to cover the cost of this design engineering too. So with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Questions, comments? Alderman Goodman.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the City Council pass a resolution approving a professional services agreement with Engineering Resource Associates Incorporated for design engineering services related to the 2023 Virginia Central Storm Sewer Project.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Goodman and a second by Alderman Kruckenberg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Let's see. That was number 7. Now to number 8. Consideration of Cerny Park pump purchase. Director Kukler.
Thank you. There are 3 pumps in the stormwater lift station at Cerny Park, and all 3 have reached a point in their life cycle that they need to be replaced. I think it was 2 years ago we replaced the first one of those pumps, and we budgeted this year for the replacement of the second of the 3 pumps. Metropolitan Pump Company is the exclusive provider of these pumps in Illinois and Indiana, so staff is recommending waiving competitive bidding and approving the purchase of this pump from Metropolitan Pump Company. With that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
No comments? Alderman Goodman.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the City Council pass a resolution waiving competitive bidding and approving the purchase of a new pump for Cerny Park from Metropolitan Pump Company.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Goodman and a second by Alderman Lockett. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Number 9, consideration of a request to dispose of surplus city property. This would be Kristen Youngmeyer, Management Analyst.
Yes, thank you. So
Kristen.
staff have identified a fleet vehicle, a Ford Taurus, that's a 2009, that is no longer being utilized, necessary, or useful, and is looking to dispose of it through auction. In your backup material, there's further description, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Any questions or comments? Alderman Goodman.
I would like to make a motion to recommend the City Council approve an ordinance authorizing disposal of city-owned surplus property utilizing Obanoff auction service.
We have a motion by Alderman Goodman and a second by Alderman Lockett. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Number 10, review and file Public Works Department FY 2023 Work Program and Decision Package Status Report. This is an information only. Does anyone have any questions concerning this? See no questions? That would be it. There's nothing under miscellaneous. All we need is a motion to adjourn. Alderman Lockett.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Alderman Kukler. No. Frischel. Whoa. You guys are so fast tonight, I can't keep up. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That concludes the meeting. Thank you very
This
much.
conference is no longer being recorded.